What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Minecraft Steve's Nuts. And we're back. We're actually not back. This is the first installment of a new form of content for my channel. I'm going to try it out. My expectations are on the ground, though, so keep that in mind. What is this? This, what you're watching is essentially my version of free association therapy, or really just an excuse to play Minecraft, more or less. I got this idea from, I think it's this dude's channel that like talks about Stanford and stuff. Anyway, this series called Minecraft Therapy that I thought was interesting. More or less what he did was he just played Minecraft for like 30-40 minutes and just like talked about it's kind of random topics, which I thought is part of the appeal to me, was that there was no structure. There's also like no editing done, which was another appeal. But basically he called it Minecraft Therapy. I'm not going to limit it to Minecraft because it's a game I play almost exclusively, but I don't want to box myself in. Plus I don't want to steal his name or the name of the name Minecraft Therapy from him. But basically that's more or less what it is. So I guess if you see a title that resembles this one, because my title naming scheme is very set in stone, expect about a 30-minute to an hour-long video, uncut, unfiltered, really uncensored in every way, a true expression of free speech, of me just talking about really anything. Could be personal, could be not, could be societal, could be important, could be not. It's not really that I'd be using this as a way of like complaining. I don't really complain that often, but just trying to notice strange ways that we exist and live, and I don't know, asking myself difficult or otherwise interesting questions, and just trying to see where the discussion goes. I guess part of my reasoning for this was I noticed that when I would let myself play Minecraft, which again, I'll get to that point in a second, the fact like me like making myself do this or not do that, etc. But I would like always be watching someone else's videos, or in some other way consuming some kind of content that wasn't mine. And it was fine. Like I think it's okay to do that, but generally I have a very negative attitude towards consuming content in general. This is in social media. I'm not on social media really, other than the few videos I post here, and again the YouTube videos I watch. I guess that counts as social media, which I don't like myself for doing, but outside of YouTube I don't really consume any other social media. But regardless, I found myself just like watching over, and soon enough I'd waste like 3 or 4 hours really just watching these random videos, and then I realized that taking an objective look at the recommendations I was getting, like really what kind of person that YouTube, for lack of a better word, assumed about me, or rather really the machine learning algorithm that they use to recommend videos, had kind of boxed me in as a certain type of user, and I wasn't getting lots of content that I particularly am interested in. So in an effort to get away from using social media as a crutch of stimulation, generally because I guess I'm too overstimulated to the point where I can't just play Minecraft and enjoy it independently. I have to be listening to music and or listening to some dude make a video on some topic or something. So I thought this would be an interesting technique to kind of make myself produce while, consuming the video game, not that there's any aspiration here of this being anything valuable. It is kind of also just a digital catalog of instead of my Minecraft journey, just my philosophical journey, in a sense. So again, there's really going to be no direction with these videos. What I've done is I've made a quick or a small text file that I have off screen that I'll be reading off questions or little comments or things that I've written down beforehand, just to give myself, I guess, a crutch, really, in the sense I lose direction of what the hell I'm talking about, which will happen often, so I assume that's why I've kind of had that. Really, I want to give these as little direction as possible, just to let myself kind of talk and roam through. I've noticed now that it's a popular thing to just like put on podcasts, audiobooks, things in the background. People live their life, which, again, I don't think inherently is a bad thing. But ultimately, I'm just someone who is very much of a nonconformist. And again, you'll kind of see that, and I'll talk about it more. But in the sense, I just don't want to be the guy who's doing that. So instead, this medium gives me a way to both produce content and do something that is that I really enjoy, and just kind of playing Minecraft. And sometimes I'll be playing like Call of Duty or something. I don't know. I don't play much Call of Duty. Play some zombies before, but generally it's not like I play Minecraft almost exclusively. But yeah, I'll really just be letting myself play the game for as long as I can hold some kind of stimulating conversation with myself, which is a strange way of putting it, but to me, I guess I see it as being better than just watching some over-edited, produced YouTube video that, is, unfortunately able to coerce me into a certain way of thinking versus kind of making myself, think introspectively a bit more, which is what I'm hoping these little individual conversations with myself will do. So I guess time will tell if it's an effective strategy, but yeah, more or less that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, there's nothing in particular I'll be talking about during these. I'll just be talking about nothing. I'll be kind of also showing, I guess, on screen just me doing the relatively monotonous and boring tasks in my world that I generally don't show. I just kind of cut or fast forward these, but I'll be showing them here just as as proof or testament that I actually do, in fact, do most of the work for any kind of episode offline. Not that the episodes are of super high production value. They're not, but there's ultimately a lot more hours that go into it than is like the 20 minutes or whatever. I don't play for 20 minutes when I have an episode. I play for generally about 8 to 10 hours or so, depending on what it is that I'm doing. But yeah, anyway, I'll be showing that on screen. I'll also be answering, if anyone watches this and has a certain question they want me to ask or answer, I'll be asking myself a lot of questions, but answering any questions in particular, I'll be doing that as well. But again, I don't expect that to be a major contributing portion of these episodes. So again, I'll be kind of answering my own questions. But if you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll add it to my text document to my next version of this. I guess I'll be calling this, I'm not going to steal the name Minecraft Therapy from the guys, so I guess Bucket's Banter is the next best thing. Again, it's not super original. I guess it's original, but it's not super witty. But that's what I'll call it. I'll be sharing, again, opinions. I'm not. This is my legal warning that nothing I'm saying here is any recommendation or advice to anyone about anything ever. Nor is it a strict reflection of what I'm believing. Simply what I am thinking about or considering at any one given time. I think I speak for a lot of other people when I say my opinions are transient. If I hear something or I've been indoctrinated by some algorithm over a certain period of time, I'll hold beliefs that maybe I don't completely agree with, but am sympathetic towards for a certain period of time. which again is never really permanent. So nothing here is a permanent reflection of what I believe, rather just a collection of thoughts that I have at a certain time about something. So that's my little forewarning there. Yeah. So that's don't really take anything I say too serious. I'll probably be saying stuff that, at some point honestly, hopefully, is controversial. Because I think that's where really you get into the interesting, nuts and bolts of our existence and society as a whole, which I hope to kind of delve into. So yeah, I think if you're, I guess the question would be who should watch this, right? Really no one, honestly, but I'm not even gonna watch these myself. But who shouldn't watch this, I think would be a better question. If you're someone who is easily offended or has very hardened beliefs and generally does not adhere well to great, if you can watch, your conflicting news station for an hour without, sweating, then you're probably okay to watch my videos. But if hearing things that are like weird or you disagree with, or ultimately just opinions that are inherently wrong, because inevitably a lot of them, what I will say, will be, I would not recommend watching or ever really coming back to this type of video. But for someone that is always interested in hearing something weird or new, then yeah, I couldn't see why not. So also I think if you're not much of an abstract thinker, and maybe even if you're not, I still think it's okay. But I've learned this about myself, that I'm very interested in discussing and pondering abstract ideas. And what I mean by that is, like, I feel infinitely more comfortable discussing, the meaning of life, or these embedded social consequences of X or Y or whatever, versus discussing what I ate for lunch that day, right? Like, I can go into detail about the juiciness of the tomato, or some stupid detail about some otherwise pointless thing that happened, right? Or relatively inconsequential event or thing. So I'll be discussing almost exclusively abstract ideas, mainly in the form of maybe weird hypotheticals, or hypotheticals or real life scenarios that, maybe with a weird take, or a hot take, or whatever you want to say, and just kind of analyzing both sides. I'm going to try not to draw too many conclusions, just because I think that's generally not a healthy or scientific thing to do, is to make strict judgments on something based off of, your relatively insignificant knowledge of the topic, myself included. Some of the belief that none of us are that freaking brilliant. So the idea that any of us have all these great answers is just wrong. So you should look at the world with a basic sense of humility, given that there's a hell of a lot more you don't know and won't know than you ever do know. So generally, the answer to anything is, I don't know. And that'll be kind of, again, the center point of a lot of these topics. I'm not here to give any answers. I think if I was out here preaching answers, you'd be a fool to listen to me. So there's that too. There'll be a generous amount of rambling on all this. Again, simply because I'm not giving myself any real constraints. It will be the closest thing to Freudian free association. I think it was Freud. Basically, if you're not familiar with free association, it's this psychological, I'm not sure if it was therapy. I'm not really sure the exact context. There would be some psychologist could be able to tell you a lot more, but more or less it was a sense of therapy, or getting to the bottom of beliefs or thoughts simply through letting somebody just, equivalent of just turning on a mic and letting them talk. A lot of people, ended up diving into a lot of deeply rooted or otherwise significant parts of their psyche, just with a wide open slate. And that's kind of the basis behind free association, was that, just let them talk and you'll get a lot of answers, which I think is an interesting idea and something I'm going to be kind of implementing with this little mini series or whatever this ends up becoming. I don't know. So that's kind of the what of this entire thing. I realize I'm not really sure how long that was, but that's kind of the what of what these videos are. A better question I've asked myself here in my text document is why. So why am I doing this? So to a certain extent, I follow. I'm not really a hard believer in any one thing in particular, but I do subscribe to a certain amount of like Stoic beliefs, in the sense that emotional overreaction to anything or responding strongly to something out of your control is never that constructive. So in that light, one thing that everyone recommends is like this great tactic to get in tune with yourself, or whatever word you want to use. I'm not sure if I buy into all that. Is to journal extensively, which again is something I think is probably useful for a lot of people, and something I've tried a lot. I've tried writing journaling down, but ultimately I think I don't know if I think too fast or I write too slow or both, or I just don't really know what of my thoughts to really like write down, just because it's and in some ways the video form of journaling like this has less stakes involved, and there's less of a barrier to create, which again it leads to ridiculously low production value on these videos. It really truly is just going to be me talking about God knows what for an hour, but to me it's an easier way of cataloging and voicing my thoughts, because I think there is something powerful about not letting your thoughts just kind of wither away or be in your head, but more so speaking them out, in whatever that form that may be. Bunch of freaking gurus think that it's writing them in a notebook is really important, and I have a notebook full of stuff, but ultimately a lot of it's gibberish, and it is I can't even read my handwriting half the time, so how useful could it be, type of thing. But I still think there is value in just talking. So some people are gonna pay top dollar for some dude with a psychology degree to psychoanalyze them and ask him these leading questions. I thought I'd cut out the middleman and just ask myself the questions. I think I'm no stranger to self-love and self-hate, which is kind of a weird, again, kind of a hot take, but I truly, I think I'm fine with asking myself difficult questions and answering them, even with shitty, unsatisfying answers. So that'll be part of what this is. So you can think of yourselves as the audience as a form of some dude with a master's degree or a PhD in some social science, listening and nodding their head intently at whatever I'm saying, and asking, sometimes, ubiquitous leading questions after whatever it is that I've said. Which I'm not, there's obviously I have no shade against therapy. It's never been a effective tactic for me. Not that I've given it the real college try. I haven't, at all, really, in fact. But I do know that it is helpful for a lot of people, get out of mental ruts and, getting more aligned with who they are and what they stand for or whatever. Which I guess is a topic I'll get into at one point. It's kind of a beef I have. So yeah, I guess this is I'm doing this as a form of journaling, I guess, in a sense. So take that for what it is. Again, I've talked about the difference between production and consuming. I really do not like consuming. I mean, I like content, that is, just because I know I have a software background, so I know all of the the algorithms is meant to maximize the amount of time I spend sitting in front of here, and it does a really good job. I mean, my God, even being aware of the main goal of the algorithm, I still have a hard time not clicking on the next YouTube video, only because it is so delectable, or whatever word you want. Basically, they do a good job with keeping people consuming. But I know that I don't know. I'm gonna guess that in the long term, it's not going to be good for me getting into the lifelong habit of consistently consuming stuff. So instead, I'm going to be trying to produce, and this is a fundamental of this series is just me producing versus consuming. So that's one part of it. It's also a great excuse just for me to play video games and also show you guys the parts of the Minecraft world that you don't see, all the grunt work that goes into the back end. That's a small part of it too. And the other thing is it gives me just a platform, even just for myself, to catalog and feel like I've again sat in that opposite chair against some dude with a degree in a social science. Again, I realize I'm sounding condescending to that profession, but I not at all. It's my nonconformity speaking, and not my truest intentions. So I truly think it's an effective medium for everyone, and this is just my form of it. So we'll see. So yeah, I guess in a way you can consider this therapy. Because ultimately, I think therapy in itself is a very important function, especially in this kind of postmodern society where it's, we've had the explosion of technological progress, mainly through the internet, that has, given so many opportunities for good things to happen. Mind you, I'm not going to be completely negative, but it's also, uncorked a lot of issues that I don't think anyone was really ready to deal with. Social isolation, the knowledge about all these social and economic problems that everyone is dealing with, across the country and the world, and this sense of being connected but like separated from everyone all the time. Sorry, I'm in the middle of this wither skeleton clusterfuck, and it's kind of distracting. But yeah, there's just so many things going on, and I don't think we were suited as a society to. Oh shit! Fuck! I'm an idiot. Oh my god, that was stupid. I didn't think we were ready as a society. Sorry, I got myself into a little bit of a trouble. I thought I'd ender pearls for some reason, but I didn't. As a society to handle, the implications of the internet, really. And I'm gonna just be blunt. I think it is the internet. Some people blame it on, it was bound to happen with this and that. I just think with the rise of the internet, it accelerated a lot of what perhaps could have already happened, or what would have happened. It just happened a lot sooner with the internet. And I think, again, therapy has a role there in terms of people that unfortunately have little to no power. Like, I don't have any influence over what's going to happen, right? I'm pretty much, I'm of the camp that almost nothing I'm going to do is going to have any impact on these, macroeconomics. So, if I could have an impact, then it wouldn't be, much of a macroeconomic state, right? If like one person could make this huge impact, then like, why wouldn't everybody be doing that? And you know what I mean? So I'm not of the camp that I can make this huge difference. And I think what therapy does is ultimately allows people to not feel like they're making a difference per se, but at least allow themselves to vocalize and get in tune with their thoughts on things that happen and whatnot. again, like I said, I'm not on any social media. There's not even a glass here. Oh shit. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm not on any social media, I guess except for YouTube, which again I'm trying to kind of rid myself of by doing this series. Yeah, I'm not really up to date on all these social issues, but I do know that they've had some pretty monstrous effects on society at large, and yeah, I just don't think we were prepared to deal with them as a whole. Sorry, I gotta find this. I'm not even gonna worry about the slab. But yeah. So I really think it is a useful tool for a lot of people, and even for me, I just have no disposable income, and to me, this is a more appealing option than, again, paying some dude with a master's degree or PhD to ask me leading questions and to psychoanalyze myself. I do plenty of introspection as is. This is just a way of me really vocalizing it and allowing me to really formulate my thoughts. Not that they're of any value, because I think that there are. I mean, unfortunately for therapists, most of what they're listening to is just very average or below average opinions on pretty much anything. No one's going to win a Nobel Prize from what they said in their therapy session, right? Generally things that people aren't proud of. So it's not really like, I think I'm missing anything by not doing that. But anyway, yeah. That's one kind of major function of this. And, yeah. And again, I think the point of this is not to complain and just kind of, bitch about this and that. Even though that might be what it kind of sounds like at times. I think the point of it is rather just to maybe just question and to some extent critique, what's going on in the world. Not that I have a great idea, just because I'm missing out on these social platforms, but I talk to people that keep me up to date on things, and I see some of the news just through YouTube videos, even though it's a very biased and small glimpse into what's going on. But generally I try to be mostly apathetic and non-existent in terms of what's going on. Yeah, so I mean, I guess this first idea that I can kind of start talking about today, and something that I go back to a lot, and it's constantly something that takes up real estate in my brain, is this idea of pleasure, right? Like, neurologically speaking, we are creatures that seek activities that reward us, right? So at this point, everyone's is probably tired of hearing all this dopamine this, dopamine that, and all these receptors that control this. And, we could obviously chemically boil down any and everything we do to like, oh, does it, maximize dopamine? And people talk about how the social media platforms are bad because they, dopamine, they hack the dopamine. There's no like direct hacking going on, but generally since the algorithms are designed to maximize your time spent watching, more or less, I guess you could think of it as hacking. But again, I don't think that's a very accurate or great portrayal of what's going on. But it is kind of central to the way we live our lives. And this idea was really interesting to me when I was introduced to the hedonic set point, which again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it's the hedonic set point. It might be hedonic set point or some crap like that. I don't entirely know, but either way, it basically like had this really interesting idea that people, they was like, oh, money can't buy happiness. Or like, maybe it can. Or like, oh, if you make, $75K or adjusted for inflation, it's 101, whatever it is. I don't really know. There's all these studies about can money buy happiness. But I'm of the camp that I think money in itself can, to a certain point, yes, increase like your day-to-day pleasure. But I think the pursuit of day-to-day or instantaneous or even short-term, like week-to-week, month-to-month pleasure is overrated and is generally not what I think, not what I want for myself. Again, I don't want to make any recommendations to anyone because, who the hell am I to tell you what to do? But really, I think, this idea of satisfaction to me is a lot more useful because it's, satisfaction is a long-term thing, right? Are you satisfied with your life on your deathbed, right? And that's kind of a crappy way to put it, but in a lot of ways that's a better question to ask in my mind instead of like, oh, are you happy? Because ultimately the days themselves are whatever, right? Like you have bad days, you have good days, no matter what, right? And then, the false idea that, oh, if you're Jeff Bezos, every day's a good day, because you're a billionaire. But it brings me back to this idea of the hedonic set point, which I realize is what I led off this whole argument with. But the hedonic set point basically says that regardless of your actual living conditions, your brain kind of resets itself to this new normal. And I think everyone is vaguely familiar with this idea. It's like, you get up every morning, you get into your, Honda Civic or something, and it's like, oh, my life sucks. I gotta go to work, and you like pick up a, McChicken or whatever the McBagel. I don't know what the hell they serve at McDonald's these days. Anyway, you eat that, and you're like, oh, it sucks. You kind of go through your day, you're like, man, if only I had a bunch of money, it'd be great. But at the same time, I guess they've done studies or something. You could look it up. I wouldn't take my word for it either. But, they said in the same way, it's like, some billionaire gets up, he gets into his McLaren, he's like, just another day in my McLaren, which again, I realize if you don't own a McLaren, if you've never driven in one, it's not. But everyone knows that you get used to stuff over time. So it's like, who's really would be that happy on day 2000 of riding in the same car, right? I don't know. Maybe you would be, maybe not. But, and then, he gets in his car, he's like, oh, I got to go manage all my $2 billion worth of assets. I wish, whatever. It's the equivalent of work for this person, which, again, I realize could be nothing, but at the same time, a lot of them still end up working more than most of us, just because they have to, their full-time job is to manage all their assets, which, if you're worth like $2 billion is, you got to manage all these properties and all this stuff. And I guess you could hire people if you were smart, but a lot of them don't trust anyone with their money except for themselves, and so they spend all their time really overtime managing all their assets, which could be even more of a pain in the ass than going to work at McDonald's. And instead of getting their McBagel or whatever I called it before, I don't really know. They go to Starbucks and get the same thing, and they obviously don't have to worry about it costing $11. So they're less concerned with the money aspect of it, but they're still, like, in a lot of ways just as trapped as someone who works an otherwise inglorious job, I suppose, whatever that may be. That could be, it could be a sales associate, it could be a billionaire, it could be a fast food worker. It doesn't really matter in my eyes. But the hedonic set point basically says that the amount of pleasure that this person derives from their daily activities is relatively the same between these two parties. So I think it, a lot of people would agree with me in saying that it's like, oh, money is not going to buy you happy. I don't think it will. Maybe like the first week or so, but like, should you really live or the first month even, maybe the first year of you being filthy rich would be really exciting and fun. But are you really going to like live your life like searching after this like week or month of like temporary happiness where you have all this money for the first time? Because again, after a while, you're going to be used to it, right? And then the other side of that coin, which I hate to use this as an example, but I think it's the one that I was introduced to this one with. But they did like, I don't know what they did, but the Germans were doing all types of experiments on the Jews during the Holocaust, and they said that like, the amount of pain or pleasure that somebody in life or death captivity being held at starvation was again, approximately similar to what a fast food worker or a billionaire really, experiences on a daily basis. I think it's this completely flawed idea that like you could be perpetually unhappy in whatever situation you are. And the same idea, I think it's flawed that you'd be perpetually happy, right? So I think it's impossible. Both are impossible ideals. Maybe not ideals, but impossible scenarios, right? It's not ideal to be perpetually unhappy, but it's just as impossible to be perpetually unhappy than it is to be perpetually happy, according to this. Well, yeah, I think people would agree with that. But yeah, that's like this idea of the hedonic set point, and it really just kind of goes against this. It's kind of the antithesis of the modern social media craze, where everyone's been complaining about it endlessly. So I'm not going to harp on it too much, but more or less these people showing off about how great their life is. Ultimately, like it's not going to make a difference. However, whatever you're doing, really, you're going to be just as happy or miserable. It's really depending on how you kind of frame it. So I guess if you're more of a cynic, which I tend to be, you'd be like, well, being perpetually happy is a non-existent ideal. I guess not something that's attainable. So like, what's the frickin' point? But the other side of that coin, like being perpetually unhappy is also an unattainable ideal. So in that sense, like it's a little better than, it being, life being suffering, as the Buddhists teach. Which I don't know, maybe it is. Like if you've been in this long term, which again, long term is a hard one to define in this context. Is 8 months long enough? Is 5 years long enough? Is 10 years long enough? Of being perpetually happy or unhappy, there's a lot of gray area involved with this. So I can't really make any generalizations or conclusions on, the macroscopic scope of this, but I know that in a very basic sense, it's impossible to be either perpetually happy or unhappy. So for a while, I was of this idea that instant gratification was the ultimate boogeyman, for lack of a better word. So I was really doing things that I knew I didn't enjoy, and it was almost like, I wasn't like doing it because I didn't enjoy it. I was doing things that I felt were worthy investments of my time and were, I guess, good in whoever's eyes that is, things for me to be doing, right? And so my daily activities would be just like working, and I'll put that in quotes, on one thing or the other. And anytime I had an urge to, not work, whether that be, go to the gas station, get a candy bar or something, which was a pretty bad habit of mine, which I've thankfully gotten mostly rid of. Or just like open YouTube and watch YouTube, or I guess my guiltiest habit of just playing Minecraft. I wouldn't do, because I wouldn't be like, well, this time now is lucrative. I should be, putting investments into my metaphorical piggy bank to withdraw on later. But there's also this idea of diminishing returns with work. So how many hours a week can you really work? Is hour 50, an hour 80, an hour 100, are they the same level of productivity? I thought with enough gamification and enough like incentives and environment kind of hacking, I could theoretically make hour 70 is equally productive as hour 50 and hour 80. But I think there certainly is a limit. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably different for everyone, and I don't even know what it is for me yet, even with my, I guess I didn't really quantify the testing that much, so I wouldn't really know. But I still think it would be really hard to determine my exact maximum amount of hours per week that I could still remain, arguably productive, right? And again, what is that word? What is that really even, productive, right? Like, is this productive? No. I would say no, but again, yeah, it's really different depending on whatever context I view it in. So I was getting to the point where I wouldn't allow myself to do anything that was out of bounds, which I guess is a good exercise in self-control for a limited period of time. It's not something I'd ever recommend doing perpetually like I did. But I'm starting to exit it now only because I've giving myself less responsibility, which was a real long-term goal of, hustling or grinding. I guess it could be likened to this modern-day hustle culture where, I just was kind of working all the time. But I've loosened up a little bit only because I do realize that there's diminishing returns is a very real thing for that. Not to say that I think working as much as you can is bad. I think especially early on when you have a lot of natural energy and ambition, again, however you want to phrase that or use that word in that context, I think it is good to be, working on things, adding to your skill set, increasing your, intrinsic value, again, whatever that may mean in your profession of choice. But at the same time, there are really limits, and I think it's good to try to push to the end, So I'm not even mad at myself really for doing the kind of extreme workaholicism that I was doing to myself. I'm not really mad at myself for it, but it was useful to do, but it's also as useful to back off of and stop, which I've done to this point only because, again, I have less responsibility, so there's less of a reason for me to be on 24/7. But I always have that option if it does pick up. I do know that I'm capable of cranking out more and more work or production or whatever it is that you want to define. Whatever I was doing, I'm capable of doing more than that. So more than I am now, at least, and probably a little bit more than I was doing at my peak. But I still think it was good to kind of test out and see how much I could do without really losing my mind. But again, I think it does kind of have a limit, especially I think in a long-term sense. Like I think I was really, my mentality was like this. This was like the verbiage I used. I think this would help clear it up a lot. So when I was first getting really busy, I was like, oh, I can't waste a day, right? I can't let a day go by where I'm not doing something towards whatever goals it is I have. I won't get any more specific than that, just to make it applicable for people watching. So I can't waste a day doing something that's not towards my goals. And then as I got more busy, I was like, okay, well now, couldn't waste a day before. Now I can't waste like an hour, right? And then again, another semester, whatever. Okay, now I can't waste like a second. I just skipped a minute. I literally couldn't waste a second, where I was, probably sleeping 3 hours a day and sometimes less. I didn't pull too many all-nighters, but I generally would come back from school that day or practice or whatever the activities I was doing that day, and just work until my eyes shut. However long that took me. And again, I think I got a lot done during that period. I was certainly cranking out more than I was ever used to in terms of schoolwork, involvement in different activities and time commitment to different things. And I had my day every planned out to the T and every, but the issue with that is I never really had too much to look forward to, week to week, month to month. So that does kind of give you a limit, because I've realized that if you're not really looking forward to anything, it's hard to, again, get anything out of yourself in terms of production, right? Like if you don't have some either long-term or short-term or anything you're really looking forward to, then it's hard to kind of grit your teeth and get through something short-term, that is. So I don't really have anything in particular that I'm looking forward to now, which is kind of tough. I'm hoping I can maybe start looking forward to these free association sessions, whatever you want to call this, just because it does give me a nice opportunity to reflect and talk about just some insights and thoughts that I've had during the day that generally go unspoken, but maybe don't have to go unspoken if I can talk in this setting. So, but yeah, I generally think hustle culture, it does, and I guess I'm using that as a blanket term, but it is effective. It's not like it didn't work for what I was trying to do. And it's not like I'm giving up. I'm not. I'm just kind of off the gas a little bit. So if I was in like not waste in if I was in, not waste an hour or not waste a second mode, now I'm like back to not wasting a day, right? Like I still did stuff today. I'm just gonna I'm gonna waste a few hours playing Minecraft because I feel like I can afford that luxury. I'm not gonna be, at least for now. For right now I can. Maybe in a couple weeks I can't, but for now I can. So as long as I can, I'll give myself the ability to kind of not do stuff. Also, like for a while, just really bad at saying no. Everything looked like a golden opportunity, which again, I was realized is a plus of being young and expendable. Is that everything you have lots of opportunities, but that doesn't mean that they're all really worthwhile. And it was really hard. It is still really. It's not like I've passed it, but it is very hard for me to just like blatantly turn down things, especially one that I see upside to. I mean, I see upside into, to a lot really. A lot of opportunities I see upside in, but saying no is quite difficult for me. So as an active effort of mine is to try and get better at saying no. Not that I'm going to be great at it ever, but I think it is an important thing. When we're talking about, ruthless prioritization. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to focus on giving this iron golem his iron. But yeah, so that's just some thoughts on pleasure. And I suppose part of it is this, again, nonconformity. In my part, I'm very much of a nonconformist. You can bet that if everyone's doing it, I'm probably not, because I just kind of exist that way. And again, this is sort of an internal question, but I don't know if I am different for the sake of being different, or that there is value in being different. I think there definitely is value in being different, but my question to myself is, am I doing it out of the sole interest of being different, or because I think it's better? And again, better is entirely subjective there. And again, I don't really know. Again, I don't have the answers to all this. It's just an interesting quandary in terms of why I consistently decide to do whatever is not what everyone else is doing. I think maybe it just leads to more independent thinking. I think independent thinking is kind of a hallmark of at least my personal satisfaction. I think regardless of what happens in my life, I think if I do more that is not normal, I'll get more creative ideas, and I'll have less to credit others for, and more to feel better about myself in terms of I feel good about X or Y or whatever I did or accomplished or didn't accomplish. Even if I fail at everything, at least I can know that I wasn't copying somebody or doing what everyone else was doing just because they're doing it. I guess in some ways I miss out on things that are useful, but to me, I always see more value in the long term, at least, of being as independent of a thinker as I can be. And so that is something I do kind of live my life like. Oh, I just thought of this. This will happen probably a lot, but one other kind of main reason I'm doing this series, again, I'm just going to call it a series. I don't really know what this will end up becoming. Something I have realized is that I think public speaking, and again, this isn't a public setting, but the ability, speaking in general, I'm going to generalize it, speaking, being able to verbalize whatever you're thinking, verbalize your reasoning, verbalize your emotions, really any way you want to slice that cake, is a very valuable skill. And I think more people than not, more people could get better at it, myself included. And so I think part of the point of this is to be able to really, again, vocalize whatever is going on in my head, because that is kind of a problem, I think, for people. And again, myself included. I'm not excusing myself from this, but again, myself included, am really bad. I guess this is ironic only because this is what I'm talking about. Is bad at saying what you're thinking and being able to share accurately what is going on between your ears. Which I realized that was probably the least eloquent I've sounded this entire, 50 minutes, which is funny, but it's just good timing, I suppose. But yeah, I think this will be good practice in just getting better at being able to say what I'm thinking in a way that is not horrible not horrible in terms of the actual content, but horrible in terms of the way I phrased it or how accurate it is to what I'm actually thinking. I think some people get into trouble where they're just, maybe their head's in the right space, but they just can't say it right. So they're constantly saying things that are terrible or are just not accurate. Only because it's not because they're stupid or that's what they're thinking. They're just bad at listening to themselves, I guess is one way to put it. Or understanding what their own self is thinking, which is a funny idea, but it's still something I think is a good skill to have. I think, anyway, I think I should briefly talk about where I'm at right now, because I think if you're actually watching the video, you don't recognize where I'm at right now. This is my new wither skeleton farm. I've been grinding on it for the last couple of days. I didn't actually record any of this in terms of the Let's Play stuff. I'm just kind of whip it out at the next episode 31. But yeah, that's my new wither skeleton farm. It's not great. There's a lot of holes with it, a lot of problems with it. Hoping I can work those out and make it a viable solution. Again, for lack of a better word, solution is the word I'll use. But I can make it a pretty good farm to have. It's already kind of done its job. But again, I think the point of this series is to have, the point of the whole Minecraft series itself is to have unique builds. So I didn't want to take anyone else's design for this, just because I ain't like that. So this is my original design. I'm going to take credit for that. Basically what I have is iron golems in the center. And if I had enough wither roses, I put wither roses here instead of the nether brick, because they would kill the other items. But basically the iron golems in the center will attract the wither skeletons. And I put them on an enchanting table to kind of stand up a little bit so their eye level meets their eye level, and then the wither skeletons try to attack them. I probably need to take out these corners because I think that's giving them problems. But then down here I'm going to have either a piglin or wolves that scare them into the center. I haven't finished this yet. That's why I'm always doing this manually. But yeah, right now I'm just trying to get all my items and shit out of the chest there in the center. But yeah, ideally they all filter down to this bottom area, and I kill them there. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to my last point, I guess I'll wrap up here pretty soon, only because it's approaching this 1 hour mark, and that's generally where I'll try to pinch it off, because I get the point of this is to ramble, so I can ramble on for a while. But yeah, so I still am, even to a large extent, and I guess this series is a externality of that, or a artifact of it. I'm very much against this instant gratification era. Depending on external validation, social media, etc., etc. I can go on and on about all these things, but in general, delaying gratification to my future self as much as possible. And I guess I'm backtracking a little bit in the sense that I'm not going to be working endlessly on this or that or whatever. I'll take on a little bit less responsibility and just do a little less so that I have time for stuff like this, just to get myself in the more creative space. That's one big area I think you lose out on if you are in workaholic mode for a while, is you kind of lose your spontaneity, you lose creativity a little bit, and I've noticed that a little bit myself. But I'm hoping that, oh no, don't you dare. Hoping I can kind of get that back in some capacity or another. Not that I've lost it, I'm just saying I've noticed I've become less vocally energetic or weird. Maybe I'm just growing up and not being a baby anymore, but I used to have kind of, fits of hyper energy where it's kind of exciting and fun to just, be riled up about this or that. And I think with staring at a computer all day or doing other things that I don't really truly enjoy freely, it really pulls away from any of that. But yeah, that's kind of the direction I have been moving towards, and why I landed on this this video style as something to try out. I think I'm interested to see what kind of impacts it has on my kind of daily psyche and whatever. But anyway, I think I'm gonna stop there, just because I've kind of hit I have other things on my little text document, but I think I'm just gonna hold those off until the next time. So feel free, if you have any, I don't know, if you enjoyed this, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. I don't really care either way. I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for me. So go fuck yourself. But yeah, if you have any questions or even stupid quandaries like, what came first, the chicken or the egg or something, I don't know. If you even watch this far, feel free to leave it in the comments. Again, really the point of this is just to, I've noticed that there's this uptick in like these very realistic, more intimate videos with people where they're just kind of talking. All these podcasts are really popular nowadays, so you can think of this as my equivalent of a podcast, even though it's whenever I want. I'm not really engaging with anyone other than myself, and I'm only going to talk about what I want to talk about. But anyway, if you have any questions or anything that you'd be curious to hear my input on, whether it be social or not, or economic, I don't know, whatever questions you might have, you can put them in the comments. But anyway, yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this video. I can hopefully make a lot more of these, only because they are quite easy to make, considering I just have to turn on the mic and sit here for an hour and play a game that I love. So any excuse to play this more, I'm gonna jump all over. So give me some throw me a bone by asking a question or two. Anyway, this is I'll sign off for here. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'm back with another one of these pretty soon, because again, these are very low production quality. Anyway, take it easy. Peace.